What?
It's time now for My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.
Hi, this is My Two Favorite Librarians. I'm Denise Corey.
I'm Chantel Taylor, and today we're talking about murder.
Murder!
And you chose this topic.
Yeah, well, I like to throw in something that makes you happy every once in a while. I know that the Canadian stuff makes you unhappy, and anything where we talk about dystopia makes you unhappy. So murder and cookbooks, that's really...
I don't read a lot of true crime books, though. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts.
I don't know how you do that.
It's easy.
Because it's one thing to read about like vampires and zombies. They don't exist. But serial killers are real. And it freaks me out. How do you
lock your door? And people leave their keys in the car and they think, oh, it can't happen here. It can happen here, people. If true crime has taught me anything, it's that the first sentence of every unsolved mystery is, it was a quiet small town where people didn't lock their doors. Lock your doors.
Well, yeah, I think you should lock your doors, but also it just makes you so paranoid too, because you're always like convinced that
I'm not paranoid.
Yes, you are.
I'm observant. That woman walking away with two strange men to their camper in the Walmart parking lot. Should I remember those people later because she's being abducted, or are they some sort of couple or throuple? I don't know. I'm aware of my surroundings.
Okay.
So, true crime is actually a really huge and popular genre. It's one of our genres that does circ a lot.
Yeah, people love true crime. Anne Rule, those books. Yep. How many books has Anne Rule put out?
A lot. I'm going to talk about a few of her books later.
Okay. I read one.
Yes.
Anne Rule book. I think I've probably mentioned this before.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
The Stranger Beside Me.
The Ted Bundy book, which was her first book and launched her into the stratosphere.
I had nightmares for months. Oh, man. No.
He was a creepy guy.
He was.
And I think what made him creepy was people didn't expect it.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, he was so charming and he was so charismatic. See? Red flag.
Usually, though, they say he was quiet and kept to himself. This is how you know that I am not a serial killer. I am not quiet and I do not keep to myself.
So there are a lot of different ways you can go with true crime. Denise slips this genre in every year. And last year, I did like non-murder books that I found. I found a list of, and so it was like, bank robberies, con men, like things like that. It can be cults. It can be kidnapping. It can be like fraud. It can be mob. It can be family annihilators. It can be women. It can there's so many ways you can go with true crime.
Yes, but this time I didn't say true crime. This time I said murder.
Yes, but I mean, I didn't want to get too graphic with people at 9:30 on a Monday morning.
Chantel listens to a lot of true crime podcasts.
I'm going to start with podcast books first.
And she starts telling me about something that has happened on the podcast. She wants to tell me the story. And she usually starts the story with not murder related, but I was listening to like true crime all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then they told this story. So I get a lot of stories from Chantel that start with not murder related.
Yes, it's true. It's very true. So I really love podcasts. And we actually did a whole sort of series on podcasts, how you find them, how you can start your own. There's really something out there for everyone. But true crime is really one of the biggest, again, genres in podcast land and on the internet. The internet is a huge, I don't even know what to call it, arena for people talking about true crime things. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit too. So, first of all, what really launched true crime in the podcast area was Serial.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Murderinos. What is the
No.
name of that podcast?
My Favorite Murder.
My
I'll get away
Favorite
to
Murder.
that. I'm going to come to that.
I guess Serial, yeah.
Serial
I
has-
listen to Serial.
Yes, and you're not a true crime person.
I'm not a true crime person.
It was a real, like, who shot JR moment for people. Like,
Except real life.
yes. Everybody was talking about it. I think something like 80 million people listened to Serial. It won awards, and it really kind of kicked the door open for podcast. It was one of the first podcasts that I listened to and then went looking for others. And the first season was so amazing. The next seasons haven't been as great. They're good, but they just haven't reached the level of obsession that Adnan's story has, which is a book that we have in our library.
Yes.
By Rabia Chaudhry. She's his cousin, I believe, and she's also a lawyer. And they are working to try and get his conviction overturned. And Serial actually made a big difference in getting him before a judge. It hasn't worked, but there's lots of legal issues that they had. It was the first time that cell phone tower evidence was used, and was it actually accurate? And his lawyer may have withheld, like his defense lawyer may have actually withheld some evidence which would have helped him. People were scared. Why
would his lawyer withhold?
Because she was not doing her job correctly. Now, a lot of people have died. Like, for instance, his lawyer has died, so she cannot defend herself. So we don't know, like, what the legal reason was that she didn't put, like, the library girl. There was a girl who saw him in the library, but she never testified. So why not? What was the reason? So anyway, there's all kinds of things. It was huge, huge, huge. I highly recommend Serial. Very good. So Denise mentioned the Murderinos, My Favorite Murder, Georgia and Karen.
My Favorite Murder is such a huge podcast. So I'm on all these other groups like cross-stitching and knitting and reading groups. And
Murderinos are everywhere.
And there'll always be a group of murderinos who are part of these groups, and they identify themselves as murderinos.
Yes, which is from Ned Flanders, by the way.
It's super weird, though, when you're doing like a cross-stitch along thing, and they're a team, and they're the team of murderinos, and it's just people from all across the world who listen to this podcast, and that's their thing that they have in common.
So My Favorite Murder is a comedy true crime podcast, which seems like a bit of an oxymoron. And they're not making fun of murderers. They are not making fun of victims. They just sort of present certain aspects of stories in a funny way. But they're both huge true crime people and have been for a really long time. They were involved with Michelle McNamara, who did I'll Be Gone in the Dark. They were big at promoting her book. They're friends with her. They have hundreds of episodes. They are really interesting stories, but these ladies aren't journalists. They're just like us. They're two like Joe Blow sitting in front of microphones talking. So it's not everyone's cup of tea.
It's not my cup of tea.
No, there's a lot of chatter at the beginning. So like sometimes there can be 45 minutes of banter before you get into their stories. And then they are really regurgitating other people's stories. So they take like articles and read bits and chunks of things. So it isn't for everyone, but they wrote a book last year, I think.
Or maybe the year before.
2000, I'm pretty sure the paperback came out this year. So I think it came out in 2019. Anyway, 2018, 2019, Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered. And it's basically talking, it's sort of like a biography of the both of these, Karen Kilgariff and Georgia Hardstark. They're the two ladies that do it. And it's kind of their lives and their growing up. It's not totally murder related.
Not about murder.
That's right. It's not a murder story. So a podcast I don't listen to, and it's a huge, huge, huge one, and I've tried a couple of times, is The Last Podcast on the Left. and they have a book called The Last Book on the Left, and it's sort of like a compilation of different, like, I think it's serial killers. I've tried to listen to this podcast so many times, and I find it really frantic. Like, they're talking over each other, and there seems to be like no line of like dialogue. We're not starting in one place and going forward. We're just kind of like jumping into things, and they're jumping. Anyway, I can't get into it, but it is a huge podcast. Dirty John. Did you watch Dirty John?
I watched a documentary.
Okay. So I believe Dirty John started with articles in the paper. Journalist Christopher Gottford wrote articles about this con man named Dirty John, and it turned into a podcast. Amazingly good. Turned into the documentary, turned into a Netflix series.
Yeah.
So this has come like many iterations of Dirty John. And basically he's a con man. He conned several women into relationships and then took money from them. When you listen to this guy, it's a real head trip to listen. Like, a lot of women had to start recording their phone calls with him, like, for evidence. The gaslighting, like, you're taking my money away from me. You owe me $50,000. It's like, you don't work. You don't do anything. This isn't your money. And these women paid him because they just couldn't get rid of him. Like, he was phenomenally good.
But that is not a murder story.
Well, it is a murder story because he got killed.
Oh, did he?
Yes, because he tried to kidnap one of the daughters. And she fought back, and she zombie stabbed him through the eye.
Oh.
He deserved it and more. Trigger warning.
I probably just didn't, like, allowed my brain to erase that part.
Oh, yeah. He got killed. It was because he was just, if you haven't listened to that podcast, go and listen to it, because listening to him talk was just like, oh gosh. So I was actually surprised we didn't have more podcast books, but I think like blogging cookbooks like in the last decade were so big. I think podcast books are something else. And of course there's other people, like non-murder people that are writing books.
Non-murder people,
But
she says with
we're
such
moving
disdain.
So Denise did talk about Anne Rule, and she is still publishing books, although she died 2 years ago.
Oh, did she?
I'm pretty sure Anne Rule has passed away.
So she's like VC Andrews, like she died, and yet
she has these sort of like compilations of true crime stories, and I feel like maybe she had some ideas and they're just sort of continuing to put them out. I don't know what the latest one, like the latest new thing out. We do rebuy a lot of her old stuff.
Yeah, because it's
huge.
And it gets tattered because people borrow it a lot.
And the thing about Anne Rule, there's a difference between like a journal. Anne Rule was a journalist. She was a police officer and she was a journalist, so she knew her stuff. But I find like there's a difference between someone being analytical about writing and someone who's writing you like a story about someone. I don't know how to describe it because she's not fictionalizing things. She's using true facts, but she just makes it really readable. And I think that's why people like her.
So I just looked it up.
Yeah.
She died in 2015.
Okay, yeah, it's been
5 years ago.
It was a big blow to the true crime. They call her the queen of true crime.
Yes, I really can see that.
So obviously The Stranger Beside Me was her first book. It was huge, about Ted Bundy.
Because she had actually worked with Ted Bundy.
Yes, she worked and interacted with him, and again had that firsthand knowledge of, oh, he was so charming. He was so, because that's what people always say about him. Oh, he's so charming. He was so blah, blah, blah. I can't believe he murdered all those women. I'm shocked. Every true crime documentary has a neighbor next door. Oh, he used to put up his Christmas lights and he used to like blow my leaves for me. I can't believe he murdered his whole family.
Oh my goodness. Why do you listen to this stuff? It's just, how do you sleep?
I sleep better than when I watch zombie things.
Zombies aren't real.
Yes, but I need to be prepared for the serial killers. I don't need to, hopefully, God knows, in 2020, be prepared for the zombies. Okay.
There are a few weeks left.
Yeah, I know. So, Small Sacrifices.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Diane Downs.
I read that when I was in like high school.
So Diane Downs killed her children, and she was the one who, not Susan Smith, who was another child killer, but a shaggy-haired man pulled her over and shot her children.
And they proved that she shot herself in the arm.
Yes, she was very, like, it's hard to judge what somebody's like in a crisis, like how you would phone 911 and I would phone 911 if somebody was panicking about something or we lost someone or something. Like, we can't really judge something, because those early, like, Diane Downs, they were the first recorded trials. They were the first, like, the beginnings of court TV and that. And so it's not the same. Public opinion really came in with her. People did not like her. And apparently because 2 of her children survived, she talked about how Hungry Like the Wolf was playing on the radio, and they played it in the courtroom, and she was tapping her feet along to it. And I thought, that's not.
Because if that was a song playing on the radio when your children died, wouldn't that song give you like a traumatic reaction as opposed to, this is a catchy song by Duran Duran?
Yeah. Fun fact, she also escaped from prison.
Oh.
Yeah. She jumped the fence and escaped from prison, and these, like, seniors picked her up, and she was like, oh, my boyfriend, we broke down, I have to go and get him. And then she's driving along and she's like, I'd really like a pizza. Could we stop and get a pizza? Like, it's like she has no idea what's inappropriate to say. Mm-hmm. Like, if your boyfriend's, like, trapped on the side of the road somewhere, should he be stopping for pizza?
Probably not.
No. Anyway, Running Red, Green River, Gary Ridgway, who was the Green River killer. I think that's what they call him. Lust killer, Jerry Brudos. We don't even want to go with him. He liked women's shoes. I'll let your imagination go from there. The I-5 killer, she covered some big ones.
Yeah, not going to read those.
I'm not expecting you to. Mm-hmm. So lastly, I wanted to talk about a couple of 2020 books that came out. So of course, we've had a big chunk of our year kind of go missing, and we're catching up on our ordering. And I was actually surprised at how many of these, usually with the true crime catalog, we just say, take the mob ones out and order the rest.
Yeah, the mob ones don't seem to
here.
People don't want to borrow the mob ones or the Hells Angels ones, but the murder books go, like, people love to read a murder book, apparently, but they don't want to own them.
No, I don't blame them. I wouldn't. No. Who has room for all those things in their house? Anyway, American Predator, which is about Israel Keys, which is a huge one. He was a very prolific serial killer. He used to travel around the country and bury murder kits. So he would, like, fly out. Like, he was unbelievably, cruel. Oh, he was terrible, but so forward thinking.
So perhaps we'll just leave the rest of that description for somebody who wants to read that book.
I'm not going any further than that. Unspeakable Acts. We Keep the Dead Close. Savage Appetites.
These all sound very frightening. Just the title sounds frightening.
The Third Rainbow Girl. Hell in the Heartland.
Okay, the Third Rainbow Girl sounds less frightening.
That is about 2 girls. There used to be this, some sort of, like, hippie festival. Shouldn't say hippie. But there used to be this festival in the Appalachian Mountains, and you hiked up to get there, and a couple of girls went missing. And I read so many descriptions for true crime books when I was putting this together. I'm trying to think, did they find their bodies or not find their bodies? Because that's the other thing. Do you want things that are solved, or do you want cold cases? Because cold cases are obsessed. Let's talk about Zodiac. Do you know what they call Zodiac researchers on the internet? Because, of course, the internet completely feeds these murders. Zodiologists. Ugh. And I have one last book for you. Speaking of the internet, Alicia Lamb.
Oh.
Yes, you know that because you've seen the video.
That is creepy and weird.
It is creepy. And so Alicia Lamb was found in the water tank of a hotel, I think in Los Angeles. She was floating in the water tank. Did she kill herself? Was she murdered? When they started investigating, they found this very, very creepy surveillance footage of her in an elevator. Did she have some sort of mental breakdown? Was she cycling off her medication? It looks like she's talking to someone. It looks like she's trying to hide, but like the elevator isn't closing. You can see it on the internet. And of course, once the internet gets involved, it leads to all these crazy theories about so many things. The internet really feeds the true crime beast.
Well, no, it's the true crime beast that is feeding this stuff online, and then other people see it. It's a way of sharing it more widely.
Well, I think people have found their like brethren in true crime, where like maybe like 30 years ago
you would have
been a weirdo. There was a book.
Still a weirdo.
There's a book by Charlene Harris, the Aurora Tea Garden series, which I've tried to read and I can't finish it. I just don't like her. And they had a true crime book club in the town where they used to meet, and everyone had to present a crime. And then they had to discuss, like, was the killer found? Did they have the right person? The legal aspects. So that was like the internet in the 80s.
It's funny that you say that, because the book I am currently reading is called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. And this group of women has a true crime book club. And okay, so I'm about 15% into the book. I know the percentage because I'm reading it as an ebook, so it tells me. I assume that there's going to be some murder in this book. But so far, all that's happened is that a woman was attacked in her backyard and the neighbor bit off her ear lobe and swallowed it.
The neighbor bit off her earlobe?
The neighbor bit off her earlobe.
So did the neighbor attack her?
Yes.
Okay.
The neighbor was also in the backyard, like, eviscerating a raccoon. So she may be a vampire.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many people were reading this, like, during pandemic, because I had tried to start reading it, and then I was like, no, I can't with this book.
Because they're vampires and not real, and therefore you find it creepier. I don't understand. What are you reading?
So I am reading a not true crime book. I am reading.
Is it a romance?
It actually, I would say it's more of like a cozy mystery kind of thing, because it's a bit of a series. It's by Cynthia St. Aubin, and it's called Love at First Bite. So it's werewolves, my favorite.
So you can't read werewolves if they're like scary werewolves, but you can read werewolves
if they're adorable,
if they're romantic werewolves.
Yeah, if they're art gallery owners who hire like weirdos, yeah, I can totally read about those werewolves. Now, this has a mystery aspect to it. And I just bought the second book in the series for the library. It's called Love Sucks, and it's got vampires in it. And Vincent van Gogh is involved. He's apparently still alive. And I can't remember if it's the first book.
What year is this set?
It's current.
Okay.
I can't remember if it's the first book or the second book that somebody is killing women, and it's werewolves. And the police officer thinks it's the gallery owner. I think it's the first book. Because I'm barely into it. I'm like maybe 2 or 3 chapters into it.
In Wolf Gone Wild, wasn't he also a gallery owner? Is this a thing that werewolves do?
He was an artist, and yes, he did own a gallery, and that's very good remembering of you, Denise. One of my favorite books of the year.
I read it.
I know you did.
So far this year, I've read 84 books. So I'm not going to get to 100 this year.
I think I've just hit 50. So I've lowered my expectations. I'm hoping to hit 60 by the end of the year, but it's not going well.
Yeah, this makes me sad.
Can we count the Harry Potter movies as books?
No, we cannot. Books are books. So later this month, Chantal and I are going to do a Facebook Live. It will be on the Cumberland Public Library's Facebook page on December 18th at 4 o'clock. Don't worry if you can't watch it that time. You can watch it whenever. It'll still be there. We're going to set our reading intentions for 2021.
We'll see how that goes.
And if you're unable to come to the library for any reason, we offer borrow by mail to all citizens of Cumberland County. This is a free service. We will mail you books, movies, jigsaw puzzles, pretty much anything we can fit into one of our mailing bags. I know that some people are hesitant to go places right now, and I understand completely, and we are happy to mail things to you. And, just so you have things to entertain yourself while the world is bleak.
Well, you could also be thinking of celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah and need some books to get you through your family time.
Yes. To get you through your family time.
Yes. There's lots of good things that are happening right now, or potentially good things.
We'll send you out some cookbooks so you can make cookies.
Some true crime.
Oh. We also have ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, TV shows, movies, and music online. You can find it on our website. We have a couple of different services. All you need is a library card. And if you have any problems with downloading things, let us know. We'll give you a hand. And if there's anything that you wanted us to talk about on the radio, put a comment in the My Two Favorite Librarians Facebook group, because we're making our list for 2021.
I also wanted to add our website, www.cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca. You can join our newsletter. Just put your email in there and we'll send you out a monthly letter telling you what's happening at the library.
Yeah. Next week.
Memoirs.
Bye.
Bye.
My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by the Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.